Hello, how you doing? I'm Craig Parkinson. You are listening to the Two Shot Podcast. Sit yourself down, pop the kettle on. We're going to have a nice old chat. Who's it with this week? I'm going to tell you right now. Hiya, how you doing? You okay? No, seriously, I'm asking you, alright? That's good. This is the Two Shot Podcast. I'm Craig Parkinson, and this week, me and producer Griff, where did we go? We only went to North London. We've got to get back up north. There's too many of these podcasts down in London. No, I'm joking. I love London. It's fantastic. I used to live there anyway. But we went to North London to have a sit-down chat with somebody. Now, this is a bit of a sensitive one this week because how do I phrase this? I am not able to tell you his full name, right? It's for personal and professional reasons, but what I can say is that his name is Danny. It's a positive podcast episode. It's full of happiness. Personally, I found it quite emotional. It'd be very interesting to see what you think when you hear it. The one thing I will say is there may be some people who are listening to this episode and they recognise the name, the full name of this week's guest. And what I would really, really love to say is please don't throw out there on social media who reveal, basically, don't reveal the full name of the guest. It could hurt other people. It could hurt him personally and professionally. So I'd really appreciate that. But yeah, I suppose we should just get on and play it. Here we go. This is the Two Shot Podcast with Danny. And that's how they start. I don't know who made the decision that podcasts go, oh, right, and we start. So as you can hear in the background, myself and producer Griff have come to North London today. And in the background you can hear this week's guest's 8-month-old little boy who has, unfortunately for us, woken up slap bang at the beginning of this podcast.
He might go back.
Right.
He might not.
He might. Anyway, look, what I'll do, we'll try and speak very quietly, so pop your earphones in and away we go.
Hello.
Danny, how are you, mate? You well?
I'm alright. I might have to go and do something about that in a minute.
Why don't we just take a little advert break for our sponsors, which we don't have, and Danny can go and see how this little boy is. Pause.
Completely sod's law, isn't it? He's nailed on to do 2.5 hours. This time of the day. If, in my head, if it all goes tits up, then well, maybe we can... When Mandy gets back, he'll get up and they can do whatever.
Let's see how we go for now.
Right.
But, you know, we've started anyway. Because that's our podcast. Do you listen to a lot of podcasts, Dan?
I don't, because I've got so much music.
So much music and 2 young children. Doesn't really help.
And not a lot of time, yeah.
Do you come from a big family, Dan?
I'm the oldest of 3.
And what are their professions now?
My brother's not working. And my sister is training to do something similar to me. The foundations are Freudian psychoanalysis, and then lots of other various thinkers throughout the last 100 or so years. So I think psychoanalysis has been around about 125 years, 120 years.
And how long do you have to train for that? I certainly study.
Well, there are different ways of doing it, and I've done it as usually the most difficult way you could possibly do it, which is how I do everything. So I am training at a place which is, it's almost like doing an apprenticeship.
Right.
So I've already got a master's degree in psychoanalysis, which I did while I was still acting. And then I decided I wanted to train as a psychotherapist. And so the learning element is 4 years. So I've done that. But then you have to see people for a certain amount of time before they will allow you to legitimately say you're a psychotherapist. It's a very grey area. So there will be, some people will say, oh, I'm a psychotherapist, but they won't have done it as much work as I have.
And when you say there's a certain amount of time, is that a stipulation that you have to do like 30 hours or something like that? Or?
Yeah, it's considerably more than that. Yeah.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
How long is it? Do you want me asking?
Well, it's into the hundreds of hours.
So that's where we are now, today.
Yes.
So what I want to do is go right back to the beginning. When you, where did you go to school? Because you're...
I'm North London, yeah.
North London, born and bred.
So I was a Barnet boy. I was born in Hammersmith. And I was born on Friday the 13th. And literally, my mum went into labour the day they were moving house from Hammersmith to Barnet, which is, in London terms, fair old trek.
Yeah.
And so my grandparents had to do the move because my mum was rushed to Queen Charlotte's Hospital in Hammersmith to have me. Same hospital as John Lennon's kids. Don't know why I know that.
And then when you were growing up and when you were at school, what? Because I know you and I've known you for many a year. I know that music's a massive passion for you. But what were you passionate about when you were a kid?
I think, music was my earliest memory is being passionate about music. So I remember, it's interesting because it's the 50th anniversary, isn't it, this year? So the first record I remember listening to over and over and over again on my dad's big old 70s headphones was Sgt. Pepper's album. And I knew it all inside out.
And does that stem from your dad or your mum, the music?
They were my mum's. My dad's a jazz man.
Right.
A lot hardcore jazz man. So I had that influence as well. I've still got a lot of his old records. I've still got that copy of Sgt. Pepper's. Back in the days when you used to take them to parties. That's not like us with our MP3s.
Yeah.
So you used to take your new records to the party. So I've still got in my mum's handwriting the little stickers on the front.
Oh, yeah.
With our surname on them so that nobody else could pinch them.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I love that. And I remember, what I remember most about that record was, A Day in the Life.
Yeah.
The big orchestral. I couldn't listen to it all because when I was 5, the orchestral bit was too much for me.
Emotionally?
On my headphones, yeah. It used to scare the hell out of me.
Oh, it used to scare you?
It used to terrify me. And I couldn't listen to it for years. Years and years and years.
Wow.
It used to, I don't know why, it had a really intense emotional effect on me.
It's just music though, isn't it? It can happen to all sorts.
Yeah, exactly. But for years, I don't think I could listen to it till I was, 12 or 13.
I burst into tears watching an animated film with my son the weekend because there was a pig singing. And I just burst into tears.
Well, singing pigs.
Singing, if you don't see him, singing pigs in a leotard.
As a Jewish boy. So.
Dan, when did the acting come sort of knocking on your doorstep? What age were you?
Well, the first time I had ever acted was in 24/7.
So, for those people who don't know, that was Shane Meadows' debut feature film, wasn't it?
It was his first kind of serious debut feature film. I use the word serious advisedly. I don't mean that the previous one wasn't serious.
No, but
it was the first one.
You're saying he'd done little shorts and stuff before.
Well, and he'd done Small Time, which was, made for a £5 using high 8 cameras then.
So how did you end up being in that position?
Well, it's just bizarre, really. I had a breakdown in my late teens, but still managed to get myself to college in Nottingham, and I moved into a really rough bit of Nottingham, and I was living with people I didn't know, and I'd got there a week earlier and moved in, and there was it was pre-mobiles, there was no telephone there, there was nothing, and I was not in a good way, and I went into the city centre, and there was this bizarre piece of art in the slab square, we used to call it in Nottingham. It was just a big black box, and people kept popping up out of this box, and there was this quite funky young guy there with a kid in a pushchair, and he just started talking to me, and I was so nervous. I thought he had an angle, I thought he was up to something, and he invited me to come and have a coffee with him, and I thought, this is all wrong, this guy's bad news.
But you went along anyway.
But I went along.
Yeah.
And we had a coffee, and he was a really nice bloke, and we became friends. And he lived on the same road as Shane and was in Small Time, and then later was in 24/7. And they were making these short films together. And then a year, maybe more later, Shane was living in a house very near me, and we used to pop round, have a bit of food, and I popped round one day, and I was chatting to him about a record I'd just bought, and he said, I'm just about to make another film, would you like to do an audition? And the next time I popped round to see a mate of mine, no one was there except Shane, and he took me upstairs, and we did this audition, and I didn't think anything of it really, and then 3 months later a script turned up on my doorstep, and then by the time we got to rehearsals, Shane had made the part considerably bigger, and hadn't told me because he knew that I'd get scared and probably back out, which he probably was right.
So look, sorry for jumping around a lot. For someone who was born where they were, how did you end up in Nottingham?
Well, again, interesting. As I said, I was in a bit of a state. And
do you mind if we discuss about your breakdown, or is that not something you want to talk about?
I don't want to go into it too much. It's funny. Fine. I mean, I was saying to you before we started this that, as a psychoanalyst, I kind of question a lot about myself, and about my patients. And I was wondering about this being in the public domain, and whether I would be comfortable with my patients hearing it, which is still a question.
You don't have to. I don't want to bring up anything that would make you feel uncomfortable.
No,
so I want to. One of the things that is a through line of these podcasts, because even though every one of them different, is that I want them to be very relaxed, but I want them to be as open as possible. I'm not a journalist. I'm not trying to find anything out or expose anything. So you can steer anything away what you want to, mate. It's absolutely fine. But let's talk about how you did end up in Nottingham. We don't have to.
Well, I mean, so I sort of, my mental state meant that I didn't, despite being very, very good at school, everything basically went downhill after my dad left. And I'm the oldest of 3, and I was only 12 when he left.
Right.
And I didn't really deal well with, even though there was no pressure put on me, the pressure I think I put on myself to look after my family, which you can't really do when you're 12,
Yeah, what can you do when you're 12?
Exactly.
Especially trying to deal with any sort of guilt or shame or anything that you may feel.
Exactly. And I think ultimately it was sort of too much. I think I was always a complicated kid, but it meant that I didn't get A-levels. I didn't do very well. But I found this course in Nottingham that, what was it called? It was called Community Performance, and it was an HND. That's a higher national diploma. Don't know if they exist anymore. And it was full, as I realised when I got there, of people that didn't get into drama school. But
Right.
I was there because it had this youth work element, and I'd always worked with kids and was interested in continuing that. But also I always loved film, you know. So it was like something that I could be interested in, and, you know, maybe mixed drama and working with kids.
Where did you used to work with kids prior to this?
Youth camps and
Right.
stuff. Yeah, youth camps. Believe it or not, I used to teach Hebrew as well when I was 13.
Did you?
Yeah. But yeah, so these youth camps, I was always involved in those from an early age.
And when you were working in the youth camps, did you were you doing anything to do with drama then, or was drama
no.
completely the
it's
other end of the
completely-
spectrum for you?
Yeah, completely. I mean, no, I didn't even, to the degree that I was kicked out of drama in the third year of secondary school. I wasn't allowed to do drama.
Bad attitude.
I just
Couldn't care
saw
less.
it as an excuse to muck about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I now realise, of course, is the very essence of drama. And, you know, that's why they call them plays, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, of course.
But, of course, you know, I joke because, you know, within that there's a great deal of discipline, which I didn't have. So, no, I hadn't. And then, of course, everybody on that... So I went up to meet the head of this course. In
How old were you
Nottingham.
at this point when you went up to Nottingham?
I'd have been 18.
You didn't know anybody up there, did you?
No.
No.
And I came out the station and I just immediately liked it. And then I saw there's a lot of skateboarders in Nottingham. And I was a skateboarder at the
Right.
time. And I just felt as comfortable as I could do at the time.
So there was a bit of a community there for you already.
Yeah, I just felt like so it looked like somewhere maybe I could be comfortable. Yeah, and then, you know, I was offered a place and I went, and then I got 24/7.
How long was the course? Sorry to
2
interrupt.
years.
It was 2 years.
And I think I did 24/7. So 24/7 I think must have filmed, again it's weird, another anniversary after talking about Sergeant Pepper's, but this year is 20 years since the release of 24/7.
How did you feel having, you know, drama or acting never really been on your radar, then to jump into this feature film? Did you sort of jump into it and hope to be caught, or were you wary, or what were you feeling? Did you? I mean, I suppose what I'm asking is, did you question it?
It's 20 years ago. It's half my life ago. So it's hard to remember exactly. I remember throwing up before the first day's rehearsals. And we rehearsed at the Broadway Cinema in Nottingham, lovely independent cinema.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting Shane halfway up the stairs to where we were rehearsing, and he introduced me to Bob Hoskins, and that something happened at that point where I thought, what the fuck am I doing? And then, and this is absolutely true, Ben Rothwell, wherever you are, I walked into where we were rehearsing, obviously looking very green and very nervous, and I went to make myself a cup of tea, and the third, I didn't even know the jargon then, the third assistant director, he might have been the second, probably the second, came up to me and told me that he wanted 2 coffees, 1 white, 1 with sugar. And I was like, all right,
Yeah.
of course, yeah, okay. And then sort of ran back 5 minutes later and was like, I'm really sorry. I was like, why? What are you sorry about? Well, I was like, yeah, Danny, nice to meet you. And, you know, I didn't realise the faux pas. You know, I didn't know it was a faux pas. Some bloke asked me to make a coffee. I was making one anyway. you know? So it was all, it's pretty bizarre, but we did a week's rehearsals, all of us.
How did you find that week's rehearsals? Because you're being thrust into this film world. So this is this week's rehearsal, this is the start of your training, really, isn't it?
Well, yes, I mean, weirdly, looking back, it wasn't, there was stuff on the course that wasn't, there was this dramatic element on the course. And one thing that I remember was having to write a monologue. And I wrote a monologue about an ex-soldier and this monologue is about having killed somebody. And, the whole thing is set up for you to think that obviously he's killed somebody in war or in action somewhere. But actually it turns out that he's come back from a tour and hasn't coped well with being back and has hit the bottle and killed a kid when he was drunk behind the wheel. Right. And that only comes out at the end of the monologue, And so, my brain kind of worked.
When you were supported into being creative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Shane's very, very good at that. I mean, Shane was only 24 when we did
24.
You think about that now. 24-year-old in charge of what was a very experienced film unit.
Yeah.
Gus Caesar, who was the first AD, this wonderful Scottish guy. I wish I could do the accent. He was a very, very funny man. And we were pretty hard to handle. Not so much me, but the other lads, a bunch of young lads getting paid decent money,
To play.
Yeah. And Gus was art director on Gregory's Girl. So the 1984 Scottish film,
Yeah.
So it was like there were all these amazing people about, I mean, I look back on it incredibly fondly.
Did you get over the nerves once you started filming? Did you find the fun?
Again, very, very weirdly, I'm not sure I ever found the fun because I was in a pretty dark place at the time. I did enjoy it. Also, my character in it, which was no accident, and I'm sure Shane took advantage of how I was at the time. My character was, being abused by his dad and watching his mum being abused. And that's kind of his story arc, was that this boxing club kind of gives him the confidence to get them out of that situation and to stand up to this abusive father. And
the support on screen.
Yes, exactly. And, I had this wonderful actress, Annette Badland, playing my mum, who's, old school, really, and was absolutely lovely to me. And I was involved in that process as well. I mean, I remember auditioning women to play my mum with the casting director, Abby Cohen, not far from here in Kentish Town. And I was like, I don't know anything about this. So this is even before I'd really done anything.
Yeah.
But they just wanted to see who I'd work with.
God, so you're really into it now. And so did you find yourself learning, even though you were so green? I mean, obviously you did.
I was very lucky that somehow, and this is all very actory stuff, which I'm surprised is still all there, but I always knew where the camera was instinctively and knew not to do too much. Now, I also think that I was very nervous, and not doing much and being nervous and a bit wet behind the ears probably read quite well on camera. And Bob was very, very supportive. Bob was really lovely to me. And it's funny this, I've often wondered, because I can't remember whether this came from Shane or from a conversation that Bob and I had. There's a suggestion never commented on in the film, but there for my character, that Bob was my father.
Right. That's interesting.
So there's a scene at the end where he dies, not quite in my arms, but in my presence.
Yeah.
And that's what we discussed before we did that scene. And I remember him saying to me, all you have to do is have the thoughts. Just have the thoughts and the camera will do the work. And it's a good note for the young actors out there.
It is. That's fantastic. So it really was, you really was your first bit of training on this film. And once you'd finished that film, did you think, oh, well, that was just a little section of my life and I've just done a film? Did you think it was going to stop there, or did you think, I want to pursue this now?
Well, no.
I've got a bit of a taste for it.
No, absolutely. I mean, I thought, well, whatever happens, whatever I do, I was really serious about getting the HND.
Yeah. And
I'd been given time off to do it. And
what did you want to achieve once you got the HND? Where was the path going there?
I didn't have a path. I didn't have a path. I'm not sure
So there was no goal at the end, really, for that?
No, not at all. Which maybe made it easier for me to go and pursue acting, really.
But I suppose sometimes, even at those times in your life where you don't really know what the end result's going to be, you've got to go through it to find out what it is anyway.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Sorry if I seem distracted. I'm just watching my baby monitor here, and every now and again it flashes up and then calms down again. So even though I've turned it down, I can.
That's why we're speaking in very hushed tones.
I don't think it makes any difference how we talk. It's just I realised we were though, weren't we?
Yeah.
Psychologically,
both being dads, we're just
both being dads. Yeah.
So sorry. Did you, after that? Did you have a taste for it? Did you think this acting is something I want to pursue? I wanted to learn more about it, or?
Yes and no. I mean, without being too, what's the word I'm looking for? Cutthroat. I think I was probably living on about 30 quid a week at the time. My rent for my flat in Nottingham for my room was 30 quid a week.
Right.
And it was very easy to live 20 years ago in Nottingham on 30 quid a week.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think a triple shot at the local was £1.50, and I was paid equity minimum for a film then, which was probably about 1,500 a week. So it was more money a week than I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
So there was obviously that. I thought, well, God, if somebody's going to pay me to do this, not to mention that, your car turns up in the morning and picks you up, and then you turn up on set and somebody makes you a cup of coffee and a bacon sandwich. Wow. Could be worse,
yeah.
But I went back and finished the HND, and then the film came out, and it was so weird because nobody went to see that film.
I saw it at the cinema.
You went to see it. And how many other people were there?
There was nobody else in the cinema when I saw it. It was at the Coronet Cinema in Turnpike Lane in London, which is no longer there, which was one of the last cinemas I remember that, for some reason, if you were on the last two rows, you were able to smoke. Not anywhere else, but the last two rows.
I love that.
Yeah. It's like the last two rows of the bus. Do you remember?
It kind of sums up Turnpike Lane.
It really does. No wonder it's not there anymore. So look, between you finishing the film, going back to do your HND, and the film coming out, you didn't actively pursue anything with the acting. That's not good grammar, is it, really, for a podcast? It's terrible. So you weren't actively pursuing.
Well, until the film came out, nobody knew anything about me.
Right.
It would have been like me turning up on an agent's doorstep and saying, I've just done this film, honest. And I think I was all right in it.
Well,
Do you fancy representing?
I suppose what I'm trying to ask is, did you have the hunger for it?
I didn't really. And having not been an actor now for incredibly 8 or 9 years, the one thing I realised, particularly being friendly with guys like yourself and other guys who you went to drama school with, who I'm still friendly with, the one thing that all of you share is a knowledge that has been with you from probably when I was sitting listening to Sgt. Pepper's over and over and over again, that you didn't want to be actors, that you were going to be actors, and that is what you do.
Right, I get you.
And I never had that. I never had that when I was acting. And that was a great comfort to me when I finally decided to walk away from it. It was very hard walking away from it.
So, but you didn't just stop. You didn't just walk away after that one film.
I didn't. No. I banged my head against the brick wall for about 10 years.
Yeah, but you did do a succession of films and well-respected and award-winning films.
Yes, I did.
And you worked with great people, and I know that you learnt a lot from them.
I did work from some wonderful people. Alison Steadman and Dave Threlfall, who, not necessarily, massive named actors, but fascinating people and very lovely people. I worked with an actress, very sadly no longer with us, called Charlotte Coleman, who was a wonderful actress, and we got on very, very well.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, don't get me wrong, it was great fun. I had some really good times. And 24/7, I think, was instrumental in my recovery at the time.
Right.
Because there was something, and that was the most important thing, really. After I did it, I thought, well, hang on a minute. If I can do that, having never acted in my life, then, I can do whatever I want. I can survive. If I can survive that, then I can, it sort of just gave me a bit of fight back, really. Ironically, being a film about boxers.
When you were an actor, what did you find that was probably the most frustrating for you?
Well, you know the answer to this, as all actors do. And I think I'll preface this with what you also said, which, I was very lucky. So I made 24/7, and I never get them the right way round. Then I made Beautiful People, which won at Cannes.
Yeah.
And then I made a film called One More Kiss. And, this is 3 feature films back to back. And then, I met a wonderful director called Adrian Shergold, and he gave me a guest lead on Touch of Frost, which was massive at the time. And I thought, this is easy. I'm getting to do good quality work, meet amazing people, get paid,
learn from great people,
get paid decent money. But of course, it's not like that. And then when you're not flavour of the month anymore, it gets really hard.
Yeah.
And you don't know where your next job's coming from. And then, the little voices in the back of your head start to wonder if you've done something wrong.
Yeah. And
why don't they like me anymore? And it all sounds terribly whiny and pathetic, but actually...
It doesn't. It really doesn't, because I understand where you're coming from, and I'm sure people will be listening, will understand where you're coming from, and if they don't, then I'm sure they will do soon enough.
Then they're not actors. But... yeah, and it's the insecurity, but also not just the insecurity, it's the lack of autonomy. So, then you do get a job or you get a script and it's crap. And then you get another crap one. And then, there comes a point where you're thinking, actually, this is not what I want to do.
So from starting out, it came relatively easy and the jobs were flowing. It did get progressively harder.
Yes, and that's why I talked about what, you and Mark Stubbart, a mutual friend of ours, that you're actors. And I think that, I don't know, I'm guessing that on some level that must keep you going during those points.
I don't know, I mean, it's a hard one because I was, on a previous episode, I was talking to Kate Ashfield, who I know that you know a bit, and we both agreed that it gets harder. it does get harder and it does get more frustrating, even if you feel you've got a great body of work.
Maybe it gets more frustrating.
Yeah. So how long did you say to yourself, right, I'm going to give myself an X amount of time and I'm going to choose plan B. I'm going to do something else now.
I didn't have a plan B. I never got my degree because weirdly I transferred to the second year of a degree after my HND.
Right.
That's when 24/7 had sort of come out. I decided to carry on with the degree because I didn't know how the acting was going to go.
And what was the degree in, sorry?
Contemporary art.
Right.
And then I got offered Beautiful People, and it was a low budget film, and weirdly they were going to pay me exactly the same as it would cost me to buy myself out of my fees for university.
Right.
So it would mean leaving university, not finishing the second year of my degree, to do a film that I wouldn't get paid for because I had to pay the money back. So I had a word with them, and they agreed that if I could finish all the work I needed to do, they would let me go and do this film. So I went and did this film, and that's how I sort of embarked on becoming an actor, and then I moved back to London. But then what the nail in the coffin for me was I'd been out of work at one point for 10 months. I had, she shall remain nameless, but you and I, she holds a special place in both our hearts. My agent had moved and taken me with her.
Right.
And then didn't get me, I mean, not much, didn't get me anything for 8 months. We went out for lunch and I said, look, you know, what's going on? And then the following week she rang me and said, I suggest that you start looking for another agent. And I thought, well, okay, wow, okay, which was really hard, really, really hard. I'd known this person for a long time. And
because it wasn't you that was making that decision.
No.
It was somebody else making that decision for you.
And I'd gone with her from the agency we were originally with.
Did you feel let down?
I felt really hurt.
Right.
I mean, this is the other thing. I think I once said to Neil Maskell, when I've had a pint too many, I've got a skin too few. But I think I did have a skin too few at that point in my life. So I wasn't able to ride those punches, really.
Yeah.
You know, I really took them personally. But what was weird was she then got me 3 big meetings straight away. I think I got the biggest 2 jobs of those 3 meetings. And of course, again, as all actors know, you get 2 jobs and you can't do them both because they clash.
Yeah.
So I had to choose. And I didn't know much about it. And it was a film. And then it turned out, you know, they paid me more money than I'd ever been paid. It was a lead part in a film with Doug Ray Scott and Emilia Fox and Jimmy Mistry and Sean Parks and Bruce McKinnon and yada, 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 and some really good, very good older actors. And I mean, really good actors. I mean, there was an endless array of, just trying to think of who else. There was loads of people in it. And it was a big deal, I thought. And it came out and it was rubbish. And that was it for me. Because I thought, this is, you know, if this doesn't work out, I think I was pretty good in it. And I just thought, I've not got the energy. Because if so 2005, I would have been, coming up to 30-ish, you know.
So how long, from 24/7 to this point we're talking about now, what's the span?
What, from 24/7 to that point in my acting career? Yeah, coming up for 10 years.
10 years.
About 10 years. Yeah.
So that's a good...
I gave it a good shot.
Good crack.
And then I, as you always do, it's hard to give up acting. You know, so I did bits and pieces. I think I did a Spooks, and I did my 10th and 11th episodes of The Bill. Which... You know,
which was basically, for people who don't know, it was the the television equivalent of old school rep theatre.
Yeah. God bless the Bill.
Yeah.
God bless the Bill.
It helped many people.
And I just, so I decided to go and do a master's degree, and I was doing that, and I was working with kids again.
Right, so funny. So you went back to working with kids again after all those years.
Yeah. And I did that for nearly 7 years.
Right.
While I was studying.
And what were you studying?
Psychoanalysis.
Right. So obviously the psychoanalysis is something that's always been there for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it helped me a lot. To learn about myself, and I think one of the most important things about what happened to me with the acting was I wasn't happy, and I got less and less happy towards the end.
Yeah.
And I had to shift something, and I did, and part of that was by getting to see somebody to talk about it. And that kind of enabled me to think, actually, but also it's that age, isn't it? 30 odd. It's it's the first kind of adult milestone, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I thought 21 was, we all thought we were growing up when we were 21.
It's nothing.
But then going into your 30s, you realise that your 20s are really difficult. There's a lot of pressure in your 20s.
And also you're still working out.
And you're still working, exactly, you're still working it out. And I just thought, if I don't stop now, I felt like I was going to reach some sort of seesaw tipping point where if I don't get out now, it's going to be too late, and the plane's going to be too low, and my parachute is not going to make any difference at all.
Yeah.
And so I made the leap.
And did you feel when you made that leap, was there an instant that, you'd shed that skin and you went, right, I'm not going to do this acting anymore? Did you feel slightly freer?
Not
having made that decision yourself.
Not initially, because for a long time I felt like I'd failed, and I worried that other people would think that I'd failed,
right,
and that I'd given up. Michael Smiley said to me, took me out for lunch and said, I know, because when you're not in the game, you just don't see your actor mates as much.
No.
I'm off doing my own thing, Actors think that everyone lives like actors. It's like, actually, when you're doing a 9 to 5 and your mate rings you up with 10 minutes notice and says, I'm in the toucan, fancy a pint, and you're like, well, no, actually, I'm at work. It doesn't really work like that, yeah. I'm at work, it's 11
also
o'clock.
When you're studying and you're back working with kids as you were.
Yeah, and then having your own, But Smiley said to me, some people may think you've given up. I think, really, they know that it's the bravest thing you possibly could have done. Because in some ways, it would have been easy for me to keep acting and playing the little violin for myself, saying, my agent doesn't love me, I'm not getting the jobs, blah, blah, blah. But because I hadn't wanted to do it all my life, that gave me that little bit of space to say, right, I'm out, I'm not doing it. I miss it. I do miss it sometimes.
You do miss it?
I miss the work.
Yeah.
I miss the work. It's fun.
Except when it's making you really unhappy.
Exactly. And God, I mean, I remember joking with somebody, there's two types of actors, ex-alcoholics and alcoholics. I mean, because, and the joke wasn't really about alcoholism. The joke was about how difficult it is to cope with the rejection, the insecurity, the absolute adulation, followed by 10 months of nobody knowing who you are.
Yeah.
I heard Eddie Nestor on the radio the other day. Eddie Nestor's old school, been around many, many years, and people forget, very, very good actor, but has his own radio show now on BBC London. And he said, the other day he was talking about signing on and being asked for his autograph in the queue. And you just think, that sort of sums it up.
It's funny because these podcasts, what I never really do. There's never a career retrospective, or we never talk about jobs. But I think in your case, what sets it apart from many others is we had to delve into the jobs because that's where your, in inverted commas, training sort of started and put you through. Yeah. And I think you're on obviously a much happier path now.
I have no doubt at all that we wouldn't be sitting literally where we are now, with my lovely other half
and two beautiful kids,
and my oldest daughter having just come in, and on a beautiful sunny day in North London, and I'm a lot happier.
And isn't that what it's all about at the end of the day?
I don't think there can be any doubt that is exactly what it's all about. And I mean, if you're lucky enough to have children and a supportive partner, everything just changes the minute you have a child. Maybe not the minute, because it's pretty terrifying, but
it certainly grows. I know what you mean, and I'm sure people listening will know exactly what you mean.
It just changes, doesn't it? Because you're just not important.
It's not about you anymore.
No, it's not about you anymore. And, if anybody needed telling that, one may suggest that actors might be top of that list.
Danny, thank you so much for inviting us into your home. We've been friends for so many years, but it's always lovely to chat to you.
I think about 20 years, pushing it, really.
That is nuts.
It is.
Mate, thanks so much.
God bless.
So there it is. The one thing I'm really learning about doing these podcasts is, of course, everyone is different. Every story is different. But that was the first time that we ended, and I was a bit choked, to be honest. I did feel quite emotional. I think it was the revelation of happiness and family is so important. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of that. It was emotional. I loved it. I thought it was great. It was a really great chat, and I really want to thank Danny for sitting down and being so honest and open with us in North London. It was fab. And I also want to thank you for tuning in, obviously, and subscribing. Please rate us, give us the old 5 stars if you fancy. If you don't, just don't give anything at all, really. You can always follow us on @2shotpod on Twitter and Instagram. We're the same for that. The 2 Shot Podcast on Facebook. You can email us on 2shotpod@gmail.com. Drop us a line, let us know what you're thinking. You can also follow me on @cparks1976 on Twitter, and also put in all the W's, then a dot, put in splicingBlock.com. They've been very supportive of us. What I will say, though, for any potential sponsors out there, splicingBlock.com is not a sponsor. They don't give us any money whatsoever. Just to say, if you are a potential sponsor, we will welcome you, is what I'm saying. Do let us know what you think of the podcast so far. We're really loving doing it. I hope you're enjoying it. This has been the 2 Shot Podcast. I've been Craig Parkinson. Take care, and I'll see you next week. The 2 Shot Podcast is presented by me, Craig Parkinson, recorded and produced by Thomas Griffin for Splicing Block. Our brilliant music, is courtesy of Then Thickens. Cheers.